My apologies for the late start, everybody. I was having technical difficulties in the form of I had my shirt on inside out. That's how epic the flannel on this shirt is. But yeah, I had to I caught it at the very last moment. Went to go button the top button, and whoops, can't start yet. Always check. Welcome everybody to this stream. It is Tuesday, Valentine's Day, 2023. Welcome to this stream. My name is Stuart Davis. I am a flawed man of God. I'm a deacon at a church just outside of Richmond, Virginia. I'm not a pastor. I'm not a biblical scholar. I haven't been to seminary. I'm not trying to get you to join my church or donate to any special cause. What I'm trying to do is talk to you tonight about God, about Jesus, about the Holy Spirit. Talk to you about the Bible, talk to you about Christianity, maybe discuss a wide variety of topics, issues, and current events through the perspective of myself, who I consider to be an average Christian guy. Been a Christian all my life, 40 years, non-denominational Protestant. I don't subscribe to any particular doctrine or denomination. I'm just in the Word daily, trying to get it right each day. So, if you are somebody who is curious about learning more about Jesus, starting a relationship with him, if you want to know more about Christianity and what it has to offer, maybe there's a voice in the back of your mind wondering if there's more to life than just your existence here on earth. Welcome to the show. Hopefully, I can help dispel some rumors or stereotypes or misgivings you may have about the church and may have about Christianity, may have about the Bible. Lots of people think that the Bible is just this very dry, very boring manuscript of rules and judgments and guilt. And while you will feel those things, you'll go through things. There's way more to it than that. And all one has to do is read portions like we did last night and what we're going to talk about tonight. So to find out that there's way more. There's stories of bravery, stories of heroism, stories of tragedy. There's forgiveness, sacrifice, repentance, redemption, love, structure for the church, the foundations of our faith are all laid out there in the Bible. There's even poetry. There's even poetry. You can find it there. And great wisdom. Great wisdom. And above all, what you will find there is salvation. So let that be the first thing to knock over. Secondly, you might think that church is a boring and dry like the Bible. Maybe you think it's a place for hypocrites and let's say bad actors showing up to look down on other people, feel better than other people, gossip, treat it like some sort of social club. And there are churches out there like that, but not the ones that were intended and structured by that very Bible we were talking about earlier. No, you should find broken people like you, like me, like the other folks tuning into this stream. Folks looking for forgiveness, folks desiring to do better, and finding worship and love and support in the community of other Christians. That's the attitude you should have there. And by obeying the scripture and the word of God. So hopefully what you'll find here, which is a very layperson approach to the Bible and to Christianity, is an amateur primer to Christianity and something that maybe catapults you into a relationship with God. If you are already a Christian and you just like Christian topics and discussions, welcome as well. You'll find a friend here. This is a very relaxed stream, very casual, very fun. We like to laugh. We like to discuss many different things, and you'll fit right in. And I encourage you to join the chat. Chat we got is great. It's a collection of folks who are generally here night in and night out, who started off as viewers just like y'all. And now they're part of the show, to be honest with you. And you can be as well. Give me your insights, your thoughts, your perspectives. Let me know how scripture or how whatever topic we're talking about has impacted you in the past, or how you would react to it. We'd love to get your thoughts on things. And as small as the community is right now, if you post it in the chat, I'll read and react to it. You'll find a good group of people in the chat as well. And that goes for all the newcomers as well, as far as newcomers to Christianity, all those curious. Bring it on. Bring it on. The chat is open and welcoming to you, just like the doors to church and the arms of Christ. I made that last part I thought was pretty clever. Anyway, let's get this show started. How is everybody doing this evening? It's Valentine's Day. Emmanuel Osorio, first in the chat, beating out Nico, who was a somewhat close second. Emmanuel, I took my CDLA test but failed on maneuvers because I got too nervous. If I can get a prayer for the next time I go that I pass, I'd appreciate it. Yes, absolutely, Emmanuel. Definitely been thinking about you. Hopefully you'll get through it. Look, the best, my best advice is to just go into it going, look, I know how to do the maneuvers. I'm either going to get it right or wrong. Just pretend that guy's not there. Right? Just do it the way you know how to. Long day, but I'm glad I'm here to learn and apply things to my life. Hopefully, some of our viewers are out doing things with their significant others, spouses, girlfriends, dates. Love is in the air tonight, but not for everybody. Not for everybody. Look, Facebook popped up and showed me what I did last year for that Valentine's Day stream. And I wasn't so concerned with what I was saying, but how I looked. I had my normal haircut, and I had my beard at a respectable length, which is much shorter than it is right now. And I was like, look how good I looked back then. But for those of you who don't know, I am growing it out. I have a specific reason and goal in mind with this, and I will be growing it out for the foreseeable future. I do know when I will cut it, and we are still nowhere near that point yet. So enjoy the lumberjack look, because it's still flannel season, and the beard is long, and so is the hair. So, Emmanuel, like I said, you'll do better the next time. Just don't worry about it. Get in that truck, do what you know how to do, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine. And we need folks like you out on the road, as long as you're awake. And you've got streams like myself and Nick's to keep you awake. Unless you're listening to the courtroom streams. Those can be boring. Like I say to people, 3D women are fleeting. Flesh decays, but 2D is eternal. But in all seriousness, I hope everyone has a great Valentine's Day. Dude, Valentine's Day used to be a very depressing time for me when I was in my teens and early 20s. For the longest time, I was I was dating, but I just never seemed to be dating a girl around Valentine's Day. So it always was kind of a lonely time for me. And so a long time ago, Valentine's Day lost its meaning, kind of passed it out. But I can say, in all seriousness, that I am in that my Valentine, which is my wife, for many years, her and I started dating at the beginning of March, not long after I got home from being overseas. We'd known each other for years, and we decided uh, it was meant to be. And so something for me to look forward to on the last month of my deployment and during my redeployment time and the bus ride back to Richmond, in which time I was just had a mustache. It looked terrible, and so I decided to shave it right there on the bus. Next day, went up to Maryland. Uh, my wife was at the time living with her sister, and the rest, as you say, is history. And now, many years, a couple of houses, a few kids, some ups, some downs, some in betweens, and a return to church, salvation, and here we are. It's a good time. It's a good time. So for you guys who feel like all hope is lost, especially if you're in your early 20s, know that I felt the same way y'all did when I was y'all's age. And I know that there are some differences, but at the same time, um, there's women out there who are searching just as hard for good guys. For years, I didn't understand why I saw all these dirt bags able to land chicks. And there are women out there who are probably wondering how all these thoughts are out there doing the same and why they can't. It's important to look for somebody, a guy or gal, biblically that should be the opposite gender from you, biologically the opposite gender from you, um, who is ready to be committed, ready to work as a team. It's hard to find wholesomeness online because it's a very rare commodity. And it's still difficult to find in real life, in the real world, but it's much more common. The phrase touch grass has very real meaning to it. And also remember, your teens and your 20s, that's some of the worst behaving time of your life. It was for me. It was for many people I know. It's for people I know now. That never changes. You think you think you've got a beat on everything. You think you've experienced enough to have to understand it all. And that confidence paired up with actual inexperience and foolishness is an awful combination. Our attitudes are terrible. Our decision making is terrible. We do things we regret. It be cringe, yo. So no, if you are alone right now on this Valentine's Day, do not be um do not hang your head. Do not be in despair. Look forward to a time when you can enjoy your Valentine's Day with the person you haven't met yet. Or maybe you do know. Maybe you have met them and things just haven't lined up for you yet. Learn you don't compromise your principles, but you might have to compromise some of your opinions. There's a difference between the two. When we talk about two souls joining to one, it's serious business. And we live in and what I was trying to tell my son the other day was we live in a throwaway culture. And relationships oftentimes fall into that. I wasn't giving him a relationship talk. He's 9 years old. But in the same spirit, we live in a throwaway culture. When we're bored with it, when there's something shinier out there that we see, we tend to throw it away. If it gets hard, if we want to feel like we've changed, throw it away. If you can't take your vows seriously, your vows to God seriously, what can you take seriously? The head is nothing without the neck, and the neck can't function or move without the head. For me, it's the lack of inaction in my life, or like I fell into the deep end, but I have faith I will succeed, and with God's help on my side, I will make it. Well, just go about your daily. Thanks, Matthew. I guess if I was going to give somebody some advice on how to deal with it, go about your life, be the professional in your job that you strive to be, and be somebody who is polite, agreeable, but firm in your convictions. And if you meet somebody who is friendly to you and who you enjoy your company, who is in company you enjoy, ask to spend time with them. If they freak out, you know to leave them alone because they're probably not somebody that you're going to enjoy hanging out with anyway. Probably saved you a lot of headache right there. But if they say yes, possibilities. Confidence goes a long way, not just for how other people perceive you, but getting comfortable in your own skin as well. Confidence in yourself starts with a little bit, maybe faking it till you make it. Some people are just naturally charismatic. But confidence in yourself starts a little bit faking it until you make it, because it's a bit of a momentum game. Positive results will come. And don't be unrealistic about your own expectations for other people as well, because then that invites people to have unrealistic expectations of you. So, Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. I was on the road most of today. Tiring. So tiring. But as usual, when I'm up around the Afton Mountains, very beautiful. It's very beautiful. That's not a fun place to be a truck driver either, Emmanuel. There are worse places around the Rockies, I'm sure. But when you're on the East Coast, in the Mid-Atlantic area of the East Coast, that's not an easy road to drive on. Between Kentucky and Virginia. Let's get into our reading. I don't want to draw this out too much. Like I said, it's been a long day. It's been a long day. When we last left, man, it got bloody. It got real. Vengeance came down. And what the Lord says would be done was done. He's not just a bunch of talk. God says it, he gonna do it. Let me adjust this a little bit. It's bothering me. Here we go. He's gonna say something's gonna be done, he gonna do it. And he done did it. And we finally saw justice doled out to Jezebel, who really was the source of power and evil in Israel and wielded great influence in that land and probably in Judea too, or Judah as well. But as we see, who wants to ban pit bulls and other aggressive dogs after they ate Jezebel at the bottom of the wall of the palace in Samaria? Or Jezreel. But tonight, we're going to talk about someone named Joash. Because while, I can't remember his name. Jehu. So while Jehu was the instrument of vengeance for God, once he came to power, after doling out said justice, he became just as bad as the folks that preceded him. And I never understand it. You've seen what happens when you're disrespectful, right? When you laugh and you spit on the words of God and his commandments, excuse me. It's not good. And yet, you fall victim as well. I think sometimes it's a result of faithlessness and pride in yourself. Maybe God wasn't behind all this. Maybe I'm the reason all this happened. My brother has a great phrase that he uses. And he maybe he created it himself or he most likely heard it from somebody else. He started sniffing himself too much. That's what Jehu did. That's what Jehu did. He started sniffing himself too much. I smell great. I am great. I'm the best. I'm the greatest. We'll see how that lasts. So we'll start with 2 Kings chapter 11. Athaliah and Joash. When Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she proceeded to destroy the whole royal family. But Jehosheba, the daughter of King Jehoram and sister of Ahaziah, took Joash, son of Ahaziah, and stole him away from among the royal princes who were about to be murdered. She put him and his nurse in a bedroom to hide him from Athaliah, so he was not killed. He remained hidden with his nurse at the temple of the Lord for 6 years, while Athaliah ruled the land. interesting to note here in the absence of a king here, Athaliah ruled. We have a queen, kind of. In the 7th year, Jehoiada sent for the commanders of the units of 100, the Karites, and the guards, and had. Wait, hold on. I didn't read that right. I hate it when I do this. In the 7th year, Jehoiada sent for the commanders of units of 100, and the Karites and the guards, and had them brought to him at the temple of the Lord. He made a covenant with them and put them under oath at the temple of the Lord. Then he showed them the king's son. He commanded them, saying, "This is what you are to do. You who are in the three companies that are going on duty on the Sabbath. A third of you guarding the royal palace, a third at the Sur gate, and a third at the gate behind the guard, who take turns guarding the temple. And you who are in the other two companies that normally go off Sabbath duty are all to guard the temple for the king. Station yourselves around the king, each of you with weapons in hand. Anyone who approaches your ranks is to be put to death. Stay close to the king wherever he goes." So this sounds like things are moving against Athaliah. Sounds like she either loses her mind or she sees an opportunity. When Ahaziah dies, she goes ahead and just puts her family to the torch, either because out of grief and rage or because she knows maybe she can be in charge. Now, her sister takes her. Let me read this in a better way. Jehoshaphat takes her niece, which is Ahaziah's son, and hides him. What's going on, Carl? And he should be the king. She hides him for 6 years. So in the 7th year, it's time for the king to come into power. So he's got a royal bodyguard, and let's see what they do with him. The commanders of units of 100 did just as Jehoiada the priest ordered. Each one of them took his men, those who were going on duty on the Sabbath and those who were going off duty, and came to Jehoiada the priest. Then he gave the commanders the spears and shields that had belonged to King David. Special weapons, holy relics, and that were in the temple of the Lord. Oh, in King Solomon's temple. The guards, each with weapon in hand, stationed themselves around the king near the altar and the temple from the south side to the north side of the temple. Jehoiada brought out the king's son and put the crown on him, and he presented him with a copy of the covenant and proclaimed him king. They anointed him, and the people clapped their hands and shouted, "Long live the king!" Something they probably did not do for his mom, Athaliah. When Athaliah heard the noise made by the guards and the people, she went to the people at the temple of the Lord. She looked, and there was the king standing by the pillar, as the custom was. The officers and the trumpeters were beside the king, and all the people of the land were rejoicing and blowing trumpets. Then Athaliah tore her robes and called out, "Treason! Treason!" which is a good way for everybody to start looking at your nakedness. And who's going to take a naked woman seriously? I'm sure she got a lot of looks, a lot of stares, maybe a couple of whistles, but I don't think that it's going to go well for her. Jehoiada the priest ordered the commanders of units of 100 who were in charge of the troops, "Bring her out between the ranks and put to the sword anyone who follows her." For the priest had said, "She must not be put to death in the temple of the Lord." So they seized her as she reached the place where the horses entered the palace grounds, and there she was put to death. Probably one of the biggest charges being murder And they also and also a lesser offense of indecent exposure. How would you like that to be your last moments? Calling attention to yourself by tearing your robes. Jehoiada then made a covenant between the Lord and the king and the people so that they would be the Lord's people. He also made a covenant between the king and the people. All the people of the land went to the temple of Baal and tore it down. Yes, sometimes mob rule does good things. Does good things. He smashed the altars and idols to pieces and killed Matan, the priest of Baal, in front of the altars. Jehoiada is getting his way. Then Jehoiada the priest posted guards at the temple of the Lord. He took with him the commanders of hundreds, the Karites, the guards, and all the people of the land, and together they brought the king down from the temple of the Lord and went into the palace, entering by way of the gate of the guards. The king then took his place on the royal throne. All the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was calm because Athaliah had been slain with the sword at the palace. Joash was 7 years old when he began to reign. That's a lot for a 7-year-old to take in. Mind you, I have a daughter getting ready to turn 7 years old. My son is only a few years removed from that. I can't imagine them going through all this. But times were tough back then. My kids have lived a more charmed life even than I have. But imagine being 7 years old, knowing that your mom tried to kill you at birth, and finally being secreted into the temple, the formerly lavish and well decorated temple of the Lord, as built by Solomon, King Solomon, still a sacred place, having the priest in Judah anoint you king and put a crown on your head, and then everybody's cheering. Your mom then shows up, rips her clothes off in anger, and then is promptly executed at the gates. Now, what I would say, 7-year-olds probably more equipped to lead us than our current political leaders in the U.S., but that's a that's a different topic altogether. Perichin, what's going on? Perichin Baka's in the chat, folks, as well as Dresden. Perichin says, insofar as we humans exist as our sinful selves, any mode of government can be a blessing or a curse. It's important for us to remember as Christians that we all live under a benevolent monarchy because of the king. Christ is king. Yes, he started off at 7 years old. 7-year-old, here you go. Take the crown and lead us, child. Perichin's, wow, so he was hidden as a baby. Obviously, there were many child kings historically, but the regents actually ruled. Him seeing the Balian religion toppled and birth mom executed must have sucked. I mean, what a great moment is taking down those altars of Baal. This is important too because who was it? I can't believe I forgot his name. Let me go back. Jeez. I'm awful at this. Temple builds the temple. I'm doing this for you, actually, Nico. I know you're listening in. Hang on, guys. I'm referencing back. It's been a long day, so I can't remember my names. Asa. Big fan. Nico, one of Nico's favorites in the Bible so far is Asa. And if you liked Asa, I think you might like Joash. So yeah. Well, it's good that Baal's altars were removed, though. I know a dog returns to its own vomit eventually, and oh gosh, if you own dogs, that's such a truism. Ugh. Or cat vomit, guys. It's disgusting. Nico, don't know if to scold you for not paying attention or to say good job for focusing on the stream. You can always catch it on replay. Nico, I want you to succeed in life, spiritually and professionally. But yeah, and this is the interesting thing is Joash is not the first uh, great leader, to be spirited away after being hunted. I mean, Moses was spirited away and put into a basket and floated down the Nile and ended up in a royal family. Also, um, Jesus is going to have a similar time, more similar to Moses than here. But again, it's still kids having to escape death and murder at the hands of a government and then rising up to, in spite of that. In spite of that. So, Peregrine, I'm glad you've let us have a peek into your story. I think I do. So last year I did a Valentine's Day stream, and I think I went into more depth. If you want a better, more in depth peek into that, me and my wife, tis what it is. It's our story. All right, Joash returns to the temple. In the 7th year of Jehu, Joash became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 40 years. 47 years old. His mother's name was Abiah. Wait, hold on a second. Hold on. Hold on. I thought we just said who was Joash's mom? Oh, okay. Never mind. Athaliah isn't Joash's mom. Athaliah is Joash's grandmother. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Dumb. That's on me, guys. That's on me. Athaliah is the mother of Ahaziah. Ahaziah dies. Then Ahaziah's sister, so the Joash's aunt, hides Joash from her mom, which would be his grandmother. That is on me, folks. That is my mistake. So now that we've gotten past my flawed reading of the Bible and interpretation of the Bible, here we go. Marriage is an eternal covenant, so it's better to take it slow. Prepare yourself and savor the time now. Just like we miss childhood, one day we may miss singleness. And someday we might feel like maybe we threw away our virtue too soon in the pursuit of lust. In courtship, especially of the person that you are courting for the rest of your life, is to be savored greatly as well, Perchin. So yes, I like that. Savor every moment. My dad told me, it's one of the biggest things he told me, don't wish your life away. And all you need to do is have kids to understand how fleeting everything is. Enjoy every day. Don't say, I can't wait until X. I did that when I was in Iraq. But that was a different scenario. I can't wait till X. Enjoy what you have to experience today, the good and the bad, because you're going to need that experience as you get older. And lean into it, lean into that experience to improve yourself. In the 7th year of Jehu, Joash became king and reigned in Jerusalem 40 years. His mother's name was Zibiah, and she was from Beersheba. Joash did what was right in the eyes of the Lord. Yes, he did right in the eyes of the Lord. All the years Jehoiada the priest instructed him. The high places, however, were not removed. Why can't they just remove those high places? The people continued to offer sacrifices and burn incense there. Joash said to the priests, collect all the money that is brought as sacred offerings to the temple of the Lord, the money collected in the census, the money received from personal vows, and the money brought voluntarily to the temple. Let every priest receive the money from one of the treasurers, then use it to repair whatever damage is found in the temple. So, reminder, King Solomon's temple to the Lord, very opulent, very decorated, as one would do for the house that they are, for a temple to the Lord Almighty. The temple, not a temple, the temple where the Ark of the Covenant is supposed to rest. It stands as a wonder of the world, but then, due to the evil of the Israelites and Solomon's issues as well, not long after Solomon's death, the temple is razed and looted and desecrated. Because look, the Lord enjoys great deeds done in his name, but the world, the things of the world, he does not place value on. What's going on, Sean? How's it going, sir? Does not concern him. So when they act evilly, he realizes, look, I'm not going to be in this house with you. But now, with Joash becoming king, he has decided it's time to restore the temple. It's time to return to tradition. The tradition apparently also, unfortunately, involves not removing the high places because none of them ever do. Doing great, Sean. Doing great. Glad to have you in the chat. So now Joash is saying, collect all the money, put it into treasury, let the priests draw from the treasury and start restoring the temple. But by the 23rd year of King Joash, the priests had still not repaired the temple. Therefore, King Joash summoned Jehoiada the priest and the other priests to ask him, why aren't you repairing the damage done to the temple? Take no more money from your treasurers, but hand it over for repairing the temple. The priests agreed that they would not collect any more money from the people and that they would not repair the temple themselves. Looks like Joash learned a very firsthand lesson about relying on the government to do something, especially a building project. Where'd all the money go? Contractors. I'm sure it did. So he's like, nope. All right, we're going to stop this. I'm going to take care of it. Jehoiada the priest took a chest and bored a hole in its lid. He placed it beside the altar on the right side as one enters the temple of the Lord. The priests who guarded the entrance put into the chest all the money that was brought to the temple of the Lord. Whenever they saw that there was a large amount of money in the chest, the royal secretary and the high priest came, counted the money that had been brought to into the temple of the Lord, and put into the bags. When the amount had been determined, they gave the money to the men appointed to supervise the work on the temple. With it, they paid those who worked on the temple of the Lord, carpenters and builders, masons and stonecutters. They purchased timber and blocks of dressed stone for the repair of the temple of the Lord, and met all the other expenses of restoring the temple. Accountability, folks. Accountability. If only our government could run this way. And I feel like I try not to make this into a political thing. However, it just this is just the passage that really just is funny in that way, right? Because it's like, yeah, they're priests, right? They're also bureaucrats. They're also kind of bureaucrats in the sense. And then nothing gets done. We don't know exactly what they spent the money on. But we know that it wasn't spent on repairing the temple, which is what the king told them to spend it on. And so Joash goes, hold up, stop it. We're going to be responsible about this. And so he makes it so. Boom. Very careful accounting and distribution of the resources. People getting paid, resources getting purchased, work getting done. The money brought into the temple was not spent for making silver basins, wick trimmers, sprinkling bowls, trumpets, or any other articles of gold or silver for the temple of the Lord. It was paid to the workers who used it to repair the temple. They did not require an accounting from those whom they gave the money to pay the workers because they acted with complete honesty. John said, sounds familiar. It sounded familiar right up until that part. They acted with complete honesty. Look, I spent some time as a defense contractor. Oddly enough, I was revenue generating. No, I was not an IRS agent, and I was not any that on that kind of thing. I worked in the rail industry for a while, and there's a lot of archaic rules in the railroad. The railroad rules go back like 100 years. It's like baseball. The rules go back to the 1800s, and one of the things is mileage credits because back then, in the olden days, providing if you could provide your own rail equipment and the railroad didn't have to provide you that stuff for you, they would actually pay you per mile to use it. Now you were still paying freight and usage of that, but it was kind of like a rebate. It was kind of like a rebate for using your own stuff. Nowadays, the way it's been for a few decades now, the railroad has an inventory of its own equipment, and they want to lease it to you. Now they've got their arms tight around the infrastructure, and so they've mostly done away with these mileage credits, these rebates, so to speak, except for when the government's transporting stuff, because they say, we're kind of the reason that you're allowed to strangle all these other people, these other shippers who are trying to get goods from point A to point B by limiting competition significantly. You're gonna give us that rebate. Oh, and we get to determine what is a fair rebate. And so one of the things I did while I was kind of assisting with the management of the Department of Defense's rail fleet was make sure these mileage credits were totaled and being received and doled out and everything. And I mean, and again, we earned more money back in doing this, significantly more money doing back than we charged them to manage their entire, for help, I'm sorry, not manage, help them manage their entire operation. We helped me put a lot on my resume. But yeah, that made me, it's a point of pride for me, right? Right or wrong, pride being right or wrong, it's a point of pride for me that I actually worked as a government contractor and brought in more money than I cost. Several times over. And we still charged an obscene amount of money. So Emmanuel, hey man, it's funny timing because hey, didn't we just light a fire to hazardous materials in Philly? Not in Philly, in Pennsylvania, in Ohio, near the Pennsylvania border. I have a friend who's not too far from there. It's fine. We were just talking about the rail. Instead of calling the government out, good to see people having accountability in the Bible. There are moments where you will be proud, right? We're in Kings. In Kings, Jehu going through. I mean, there's a lot of rah moments, but it's also followed by a lot of disappointment in what they do. Solomon is a lot of great things for Solomon. Then a lot of, oh man, he let us down. Then once we get back into some of his writings later on in the Bible, when he reaches his point where he goes, oh crap, I've messed up. Here's some wisdom, and here's me trying to do what I can to set up the people of Israel. Then we have other moments like Joseph, who we've already covered, who was good the whole throughout. And the same thing with Daniel, who we haven't covered yet. We're going to get to folks like Nehemiah. And I'm not going to spoil that one for some folks. But then and like I said before, we're also going to run into folks like Hosea and Job, who have a lot to deal with and who may not really be deserving of the things that they do. But as a result, they stand as a testament to the strength that the Lord gives us and an example for us to lead how to live our lives. Nernath, but did they run on time? Nernath coming out of nowhere. Haven't seen you in a while, buddy. Except for in the Discord. Seen you in the Discord. Something about the hazmat on the rail, dude. Everybody's talking about what's going on in Ohio, and it's not good from what I'm seeing. One of the things I reminded myself, you wouldn't believe the product that is shipped by rail and how nasty some of it is. You think that stuff's bad? What if those rail cars were chlorine? Or, as in the case of Lac-Méganic, if I have any Canadian folks tuning in, might remember that Lac-Méganic was 2013, 2014. Let me show you what Bakken crude can do to a town. Let me find a good picture of it. I'm going to stop screen for a second. We'll come back to it in a minute. Let me tell you a little story about Lac-Méganic. Lac-Méganic is a small town in Canada, if you are a press secretary, Canada. Bakken crude is crude oil coming out. This is raw crude, very volatile raw crude coming out of the Dakotas, I think. the Bakken oil fields. I think those are in the Dakotas. There was a train full of tank cars carrying Bakken crude. And maybe I've actually got a good video of this. I've seen it before. It's probably still on here. There we go. Stop. Let me see this real quick. See if this is the board. Yep. This is good. We're going to turn the sound off, though, first. This is kind of covering current events, so I don't mind spending a little extra time on there. Well, you want to talk about accountability. No, I don't care about that. Is this it? No. All right. July 2013. I said it was 2013. 72 oil tankers. All right. So quick story on this. 7 of the train's handbrakes are applied. There is a formula. All right. For how many rail cars are in the train versus how many of those rail cars have to have that big old handbrake engaged so that there's enough brake power being applied to hold the weight of the train. This is that. All right. Back up. The air brakes. So the air brakes on the locomotive were on. This is giving an impression the train was secure. This is a glossing over of the fact that the train crew was lazy. Right. And when I say train crew, it was one guy. There is and I don't know if this is if something that's still going on. I've been out of the rail industry for a little while. But a lot of the railroads have been trying to push one-man rail crews. Before I worked in the rail industry, I was in the aviation industry, right? In the military, we flew with at least 3 people in a helicopter. Pilot, co-pilot, at least 1 crew chief. Generally 4, 2 crew chiefs, 2 pilots. In the military, we're trained, you want that buddy system. It's helpful for, what are we talking about in the Bible tonight? Accountability, right? There you go. However, got a bit of a problem here. There is no accountability. The laziness is that if I leave the locomotive running it has air brakes applied with its own stopping power. That can make up for the fact that I don't want to run down the train and apply more handbrakes than I feel like. And if that wasn't what happened, the guy on the train had no business being there in the first place because he's an idiot. Did he know what he was carrying? I don't know. If he doesn't know, and if you don't know, again, serious consequences resolved out of this. So he got off duty, left the train running, mechanical issue. Train locomotive catches on fire. Love the little thing here, 911. Because this is exactly what you do when there is a fire. You turn off the train's fuel, electrical breakers, you shut the whole thing down. Now, what happens? Emmanuel, our man of the who is dealing with tractors. What happens when there's no pressure to the pneumatics and there's no air compressor running? Power shut off, pressure to the air brakes gradually decreases. As it was parked on a slight slope, the train slowly began to move. Eventually released top speed of 65 miles an hour, derailing a lack mechanic, igniting, and blowing up the town. Luckily, and this is a sad thing to say, luckily, this was late at night in a mostly commercial area. 47 people were killed. Probably most of them were evaporated. Bakken crude is incredibly volatile and it burns hot. And look, that's scary, right? That happened 10 years ago. So this thing happening, it doesn't surprise me a whole lot. And it also doesn't surprise our particular transportation secretary, Mayor Pete, has absolutely no idea what transportation is. He's not qualified to be the Secretary of Transportation. Not that he's not the first bureaucrat in a long line of bureaucrats who don't have a single clue how to do the job that they're tasked to. They don't have any idea of what's involved in the industry that they're presiding over. There's a hard break if there's no air in the air brakes. How come it wasn't in the news in the States? It was huge news for me because it was a big thing because I was working in the rail industry at the time. And it was a big event. Like we were all like, oh my goodness. Because we do business. We worked with the Canadian National, with the Canadian Pacific, KCSM, Progress Rail, CSXT, NS, BNSF, UP, all those guys, right? And all those class ones, all the guys in AER. The fallout from this is nobody took any responsibility for it. And who got blamed was the design of the rail cars. And what they expected out of this was to reinforce the rail cars to a point where this would never happen again. You cannot engineer a practical vessel that can withstand that kind of impact. It would have to be so thick that the cost, the amount of product you could carry to make it worth transporting is insane. And so they had it. So they did some reinforcing of the tank head shells. They reinforced those. Well, guess what? They still puncture. They'll still puncture at 65 miles an hour running off the railroad. But instead, they required the shippers and the car owners to bear the burden of spending tens of thousands of dollars per rail car to get these tank jackets upfitted. It was insane. And all this extra paperwork nonsense all of this stuff could have been avoided if the existing rules were followed. But because they weren't, we needed more rules, more paperwork, more nonsense. My job became a lot less fun. And I liked doing work. I liked what I did. And it was still fun, but it was less so because of all the extra stuff that came about that. There is a hard brake if there's no air in the air brakes. But if your truck's in neutral, and you don't have the park brake applied, and you've got the air, and the air runs out of the air tanks, your truck's in motion. If it's on any type of grade. And I learned that as a roadside mechanic one time, Emmanuel, helping a owner operator get his truck back into action after he'd taken a very long vacation, and his brake drums froze, seized, just from some surface rust. So I'm underneath of the truck, tapping on the brake drums. They finally break loose, and the whole truck starts to roll right over top of me. I obviously survived. Anyways. But there you have it. Accountability, right? Accountability. The government has our best interest at heart. Now that we've gotten completely off topic, let's get back on topic. All right, where are we at? About this time, Hazael, king of Aram, went up and attacked Gath and captured it. Then he turned to attack Jerusalem. But Joash, king of Judah, took all the sacred objects dedicated by his predecessors, Jehoshaphat, Jehoram, and Ahaziah, the kings of Judah, and the gifts he himself had dedicated, and all the gold found in the treasuries of the temple of the Lord and of the royal palace, and he sent them to Hazael, king of Aram, who then withdrew from Israel. So he ransomed his objects, his possessions, to, this is how I'm reading this. He ransomed the stuff to keep Hazael from ransacking the temple of the Lord. As for the other events of the reign of Joash, all he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Judah? His officials conspired against him and assassinated him at Beth Millo on the road down to Silla. The officials who murdered him were Jezebel, of course he's bad, son of Shimeath, and Jehozabad. Jozabad, son of Shimeath, and Jehozabad, son of Shomer. That's very Tolkienish. He died and was buried with his ancestors in the city of David, and Amaziah, his son, succeeded him as king. There you go. There you go. All right, folks. For an hour, had some good talk. It's Valentine's Day. Go to the Hallmark Channel and watch some movie or something like that. Point of order. I know I said that I did not have any breaks this week. I actually did have a previous commitment. It's family related, so even if it wasn't, I'd still side with that over the stream. Sorry, guys. Family first. I have a prior commitment for tomorrow, so there will not be a stream tomorrow. I hope you guys will understand and forgive me. But I will be back on Thursday, and we'll find out what happens after Joash, that poor good king, was assassinated. All right, so Carl, Manuel, Nernaeth, my man Sean, who is new to the chat, but I think you've been here before. Pretty sure you've been here before. Parachin, Nico, Dresden, Matthew, And I think we got the group. To all you folks who tuned in tonight um and we're in the chat, thank you. Glad to have you guys contributing, as always. To all the folks who are listening, glad that I was entertaining and bringing content appealing enough for you to continue to listen. And for everybody catching us on the replay, thank you for your watches as well. Please, if you want to support the show, I don't need money. I don't have a GoFundMe or any of that stuff. If you want to support the show, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share. Put the word out. Put the word out that this show is out there and that it's fun and that you enjoy it. Best marketing, word of mouth. Like I said, put it out there. And Thursday, I'll poll you guys and find out if you guys want to do a UFO stream, because I got a guy who wants to come on the show and who I want to come on the show. And I think the very near future is the time to bring him on. Anyway, with that said, everybody, have a very good night. Be good, and God bless.